Good day. Thank you for joining us. I'm Perry Brindley, the Director of Missions, Association Mission Strategist here in the Buncombe Baptist Association. And joining me is Clark Henderson, the pastor of the New Bridge Baptist Church in North Asheville. And it's always enjoyable to gain greater understanding from local church context and from pastors who serve here in Buncombe County. And so we've gathered for 4 days this week in order to share with you some questions in order to try to gain some insight and direction so that you can be thinking about what it's going to look like for you in your context when the doors are reopened and you're allowed to gather again. Clark, if you would, start a little bit by talking about how you feel precautions that might need to be taken for senior adults, and then talk a little bit about what you've learned through the online worship and what you think about the future of that.
Sure. I think the greatest generation in every church is our senior generation. And I think everything that we can do to take care of them, especially for a healthcare crisis, we owe that to them and we should do that. So as a rule going forward, the first Sunday that we actually canceled service was with them in mind, that we want to look after them. So going forward, as we start opening back up, one of the ideas is if we can have 200-member services, that the first service would be for age 65 and older, and the second service would be for those younger than 65. So it would just add another layer of caution, especially if some are worried about getting around other people, that they would be around folks that maybe haven't gotten out as much and so forth. So I believe that's important. But I tell you, I'm finding out that many of our seniors are more media savvy than we think. I found out that many are online, not necessarily Facebook, but they know how to find our website. They know how to find YouTube, and they know how to contact there. So when we record our messages, not only do we record for online, but we still do the old-fashioned CD recording, so that any senior that's not online, that we can send a recording back going forward. But when we open our churches back, we want to make sure that they feel as welcome as anybody else does.
Thank you. What about the ordinances of our church, the Lord's table, and also baptism?
Yeah.
Has the team, the ministry team at New Bridge, given any thoughts to those two?
Well, once again, everything we do, we're still trying to figure it out and trying to seek the wisdom of God. It's a very important part of worship is the Lord's Supper, and we observe it quarterly, and we missed that first one when it came up for the beginning of the second quarter. But at the same time, I know God knows the heart. And so going forward, if we can have a church service inside the building, we can make people feel comfortable you can buy the pre-sealed packs of the juice and of the bread. And I think that would be our first step, is to observe the Lord's Supper first Sunday back, using those safely pre-sealed packs. So yes, we look forward to doing that.
Okay. Share with us any thought that you've had concerning baptism.
Sure, and once again, it's got to be done differently, and it's got to be done uniquely. I would love to have a drive-in baptismal service, and we could do it in such a way that really the only people that would be affected or would be that would break the social distancing rule would be myself and the candidate. And if I was asked, I could wear a mask if they felt that was necessary. But getting back into the church should be the same thing. We can do that. Sometime or another we have to come to a point where we're trusting God, being sensible, but still, that's a very special time. And if it comes during this time, then maybe we've arrived at such a time as this. So I look forward to being able to do that.
Okay. Thank you for joining us today on Thursday, and actually for the whole week. And we're very grateful for how you've lived into each session. And thank you. We appreciate the work and ministry of New Bridge Baptist Church. Thank you, Clark. And you've already spoken concerning online worship. Share that with us again.
So we had been wanting to do live streaming even before the pandemic hit. It's something that we were able to put together, and we will continue doing. And our people have really enjoyed it. They've benefited from it. We obviously know it's not ideal, and we would never encourage folks to use it as a substitute for physical gathering with the church. That's a great concern of mine, is I would not want anyone to substitute live streaming for gathering with the body locally. I think our senior adults have enjoyed it and really been blessed, being able to be in their home and not just watch Don Wilton on TV, but be able to watch their church and their pastors. They've really enjoyed that, and we wouldn't, at any time force them out of their comfort for their own safety. If they want to continue for an extended season viewing it online, then we'll certainly respect that.
Thank you. I know that the two ordinances of the church are baptism and Lord's Supper. We're going to have to adjust maybe some tradition we've had in observing those ordinances. Have you given any thought to that?
I have, and I don't know if I'm in the minority or majority on this. We're of the conviction, my fellow pastor and I, that we believe the Lord's Supper should be observed in person, physically present in a gathering together. So we have not observed the Lord's Supper online. We typically observe the first Sunday of every month, but we've been saying we believe the Lord gives extraordinary grace during a time when we can't together enjoy the ordinary means of grace, like the Lord's Supper. As far as baptism goes, we would be more willing to live stream a baptism service and let folks observe that, maybe even have a group, a contingency in the room to be physically present to observe it, as well as those online. But our understanding of the Lord's Supper from certain passages would lead us to try to, as long as possible, avoid observing that online.
Brandon, let me thank you for sitting down with us in these 4 sessions.
Thank you for having me.
Allowing us to live in to a community of pastors and believers in Buncombe County and even beyond that, as to some thoughts to reopening and relaunching. So bless you and thank you. I've enjoyed sitting down with Lonnie Ray, the pastor at Gracie Branch Baptist Church in East Asheville this week, and today we're going to close out this 4-part series by answering these questions. Lonnie, tell us how your online worship has been, and then also any precautions you're taking to assist senior adults.
So our online services have been really amazing. I personally have not liked standing in front of a camera and speaking into a camera. It's been really, really challenging and very difficult. But the response has been really good. And if you took the number of people who were there, viewers on Sunday morning live, it's at least double what would be there on Sunday morning from months ago. So it's really cool to see that part of it happening.
Yeah.
So there's no doubt we're going to continue to do this. In what respect, I don't know yet. We're trying to figure out the cost of things.
Yeah.
And so that will be a little bit of the challenge for us, is dealing with new equipment and personnel to pull that together.
Yeah.
But there's no way we can go back to what we were. It's too important. And I think that's really going to be the way that people are going to process looking at your church. They're going to, rather than going to a website, they want to see what's really happening. And I think that's going to become the new path. And so making sure that we keep that path clear and visible for newcomers in years ahead.
You were sharing with us earlier in the week about designated seating for senior adults during worship that allowed space for social distancing. Share with us about another idea that Gracie Branch is going to practice.
So in our closing song, prior to the closing song, we'll give direction to all of our senior adults and those who are highly vulnerable during this time period to go ahead and be dismissed, to go out, and then everybody else will have that closing song. And then once that closing song is over with, then they will have been able to get out of the building and not be in the busyness of everybody else.
Oh, great. So they can maintain a social distance.
That's right.
Even during dismissal.
That's right.
All right. The Lord's table, we know that our churches practice that ordinance in different ways at different times. But I think it's going to take an adjustment for all of us, as well as baptism. So have you given that any thought?
Yeah, so I think when we talk about baptism, I think the most logical answer to that for right now is one baptism at a time And so we would fill up the pool, have a baptism, and then maybe wait to the next Sunday. So rather than having multiple people in a baptism, that we won't do that now, at least not during this season. Lord's Supper we'll continue to do. We typically try to do that every fifth Sunday or a little often if we can. But the way we're going to practice that will be people coming to receive the elements as opposed to being passed out. And then those that are serving will obviously be serving with gloves and whatever in order to practice the right kind of standards for that. We may even use the prepackaged stuff as well to make those available to folks as they're participating in communion. But communion is a huge part of what I believe the Lord wants us to do, has called us to do.
Yes.
And so making that as part of our services has to be something we've got to do and not bypass even during this season.
Great. Thank you, Lonnie. And let me just take just a moment at the close of this four-part series to thank you as Buncombe Baptist, to thank all the pastors and staff and lay leaders in Buncombe County churches that partner with us for how that you have expanded ministry. You've continued to impact your communities and even increase those opportunities during these days of isolation, in which you had to make great transition. It adds a layer of stress to all of us that we didn't have before, just trying to get ready for worship and present the gospel and stay in contact with those who are part of our congregation as we have effective ministry in the community. It's our joy to serve you at the Buncombe Baptist Association. It's my joy to serve you as your association mission strategist. And so watch for this four-part series each week during the month of May as we introduce you to different pastors that serve churches here in the Buncombe Baptist Association, each within a very unique context, but both all centered around the Great Commission to spread the gospel at home and around the world so that a lost world would hear about our Savior. Thank you for joining us. Where's the barbecue sandwich?